I've gone ahead and put together a map guide for every single map set in Season 6 in competitive rotation for Peni Parker. This is going to be a defensive guide for every single convoy, every convergence, and every domination map. I do cover the majority of setups I see used most often, but these are going to be my favorites, so I might be missing some or some other strategies. If I am missing something, you're more than welcome to comment it down below. This is an extremely long video, so I'm going to go ahead and put timestamps here for every single map, just in case you want to skip ahead to one you are unfamiliar with, or you feel like is weak for you, or you just feel like you need a little bit of brushing up. I'll go ahead and leave those here, but enjoy the video. We'll go ahead and go over Klyntar next, which is a very strong map for Peni in general, for at least the first two sections. The last section is pretty rough. This is where I'll place my nest for first point. You'll see me snake all three of my webs all the way down to contest this off angle here. I used to run all my webs down main and, usually keep it up to my main tank and my DPS to contest this off angle, but I've seen way more success with this setup in general. This is going to be the main one that I will be using. You'll see a lot of teams will set up their nest here, or maybe even back on this off angle, back behind these boxes. But whenever you set up here, the enemy team is able to take this angle and shoot nest for free, so it's just a matter of time before they break it. You'll see a lot of my setups are going to be very reserved in general, just because I am typically in high celestial or eternity lobbies, and teams are able to break nests pretty quickly unless you make them make some sacrifices for it by keeping them in the safest space possible. After the first point of the map, there is a decent setup back here, but it's typically one that I fall back from pretty quickly, as the enemy spawn is just on the other side of this door. So it's just a temporary position, not one that you're going to want to die over, because you want to be able to take advantage of this next position, which is going to be the second strongest one in the entire map set. It is going to be main nest down here, and then all three webs snaking down to these stairs here. For mine re-ups on this section, I do typically like to put fat stacks here, as well as fat stacks on the end of this web. The enemy team typically doesn't walk real tight around this angle here. You'll see them swing pretty wide, so this first section here and this last section here does get me a lot of kills on main tanks without the enemy team being able to walk in all the way and take an off angle and kill my nest. Two spots that you're going to want to worry about is enemy coming up here and shooting your nest for free. I'll typically have a DPS on height contesting that, and then enemies coming back behind you over here. But I'll typically have my supports call out that, and I'll pressure this area if need be, while my main tank hold downs main, and my DPS contest height on the left and right side. Once you're pushed out of position, there is another hold spot, but it's just, again, as you can see, not as ideal as our previous one, because the enemy is able to contest height without us being able to do anything about it. And they're also able to take this off angle here and shoot the nest. So whenever you do get an opportunity, go ahead and walk up and recontest this space up here and make the enemy team work for it another time. If you're pushed back from this section, again, another hold spot is back behind this wall and boxes over here. But again, you'll see compared to the previous setup that it is just not ideal, because once again, the enemy is able to take height here, they're able to take this off angle, and they are able to take height here and destroy your setup for free. Your last hold position, which is really just a Hail Mary, is setting up your nest behind this point, snaking webs down here, and then maybe another one down this way. But again, it is much less than ideal. Take that mid section every chance you get after every team fight that you do successfully win, and make them rework for it, because if you just sit back here, you're settling for a much less than ideal position compared to the mid section, which we can just take back after we do win a team fight. For this third section, it's just a terrible setup position for Peni just across the entire area. I would recommend swapping to Mag, Emma, or Groot in here, because we're not able to take advantage of the map just as much as we were the previous sections. Usually if they push through the rest of these, they're going to kind of walk you guys down all the way through here, and you're just not going to get as much from your setup as the previous locations. So I do recommend swapping. While I usually won't, I kind of recommend that you do here. Again, upping mines on these corners here and here. But once the enemies push us out here, there's really just so many off angles for them to take, whether it be the left or right side. Again, you can put your nest down here and snake webs down main, but there just really are not a lot of good hold positions, as the enemy can still maintain height. They can go underneath and kill your nest from behind near that health pack. There's just not a lot of hold positions in this section of the map. So really, wherever you are setting up, you're kind of just holding on for dear life, and you're praying that you're able to clear the enemy off cart, which hopefully they don't have, 3 or 4 minutes left, as they will likely just pressure you out of all of this space, and you'll end up dying for less than ideal hold positions. So swapping is an option here, but again, these are really just the only options we have for setups. There's just not a lot, as the enemy team is once again just able to take so many off angles and shoot the nest for free, whether it be this left side here or coming around this right side and just shooting it for free. This isn't a good section of the map for Peni. It's the other two, the start of the convergence or that middle point of the second area are where you're going to be seeing the most success. Next, we'll go over Central Park, and the 2 locations that you're going to want to put your main nest are actually going to be behind this pillar here. But I'll often see other Peni players like to go ahead and pick this spot here. They pick this spot over here just because an enemy team is able to take an off angle from this way up here and shoot your nest with any kind of AoE or burst damage for free. It's much harder to see the nest on this side, so you'll see me bounce between each side depending on what the enemy team is doing. But 3 webs down main, and again here you do have full coverage, so really you're able to up the mines on either the left or right side is what I like to do, just because teams typically will not walk directly down this way. And then I'll also put a full mine stack on the back point here, just in case the enemy team does start fully walking in, or say I need to use my movement, or I do miss a web or anything like that. I will have these mines up here and be able to re-up and recover this space before the enemy team is able to walk all the way in. Once that first point is taken, there's not really a lot of good hold positions on this section of the map. I will sometimes see people set up here, but again, it's just really not that great of a spot, and it's not worth fighting over, as the enemy team is able to off angle and take height up here. You're just really going to get pushed out of this section pretty quickly. Our next hold position is actually going to be right here and snaking webs all the way down main, like we typically do. I'll often be a little bit heavier on this right side, as the enemy team is going to be trying to swing out very far and destroy your nest, or they're going to be trying to walk in on this right side. But it's really easy to contest this space. The only thing you do have to worry about is them contesting height a little bit, or taking a very wide off angle over here. This next section of the map just isn't great in general, but this is the best we've got. After that, you're going to be able to place your nest on height over here and snake webs down main. But again, here, the enemy team is going to have options on this left side. They're going to be able to take height over here. They're going to be able to take this route and this off angle this way and shoot your nest for free, depending on how well your team is doing down main. But again, just so many off angles for the enemy team to take. So as if the enemy team is only pushing down main and not contesting this area over here, you're able to take this left side, and once again, snake webs all the way down main here. But for this section of the map in general, you're going to want to retake this area here as much as possible, just because it is the strongest section on the map. Once the enemy team has taken this next checkpoint, there are a few setups here that you can buy yourself a little bit of time with. But again, not sections that I typically want to die over, just because, it's right next to the enemy spawn. They spawn right over there. It's very easy for them to walk out here and recontest you pretty quickly, and there are lots of off angles for the enemy team to take to shoot our nest, whether it be this side over here or this side over here, where we're not able to get full coverage and just really able to get one web down with some mine spots. Next setup locations are going to be over here down main. But once again, the enemy is able to really just take height here and kind of shoot us out for free, whether it be the left side. And once the building rebuilds, it doesn't get any better for us. It kind of just turns into a kill box choke. And playing around this hole in general, whether around Spidey's or Angela's or anything like that, you're going to get put down the hole pretty quickly. So a safer position for you to get set up at, so you at least have eyes on everything, is going to be right here. And then snaking webs all the way down the stairs so you can fully contest the enemy team trying to push the objective. This is a fairly strong hold position, but the next one is going to be a little bit stronger. This is just going to be one that you're going to want to retake as much as you possibly can, as the last section is our last hold spot, and that is going to be the main nest on this left side here, and then webs down onto main like we typically do. You can opt for the left side or the right side here. I personally go for the left side because I'm able to play in nest and take off angles here, as the enemy team is often playing around this section and not trying to play over near this right section, as you have way less LOS on the entire team. But the enemy team is able to take an off angle over here that you're simply going to want your DPS and supports to keep an eye on and pressure anyone out of this space, as this is the last good hold position for this map set. But I do recommend going ahead and taking space back down the ramp here anytime you do get the opportunity, as it's a little bit stronger and our team's able to hold a little bit more pressure up on this location than the one further back. Now we're going to be on Kunlun here, which is going to be a very strong hold point for us on another Convergence map set. I like placing my main nest just in the middle here, snaking 2 webs down this right side. I'll typically take coverage over here, re-upping my mines on the front section of this web and the back section of this web, and sometimes, if I can, get a little close to mines on this health pack, as the enemy team will be trying to take advantage of that. Then I will have 1 web on this left side for my main tank to play in, and I'll often go ahead and put mines all the way at the back point of this, because the enemy team will be walking in thinking they're safe, but there's no mines, just to get hit with a 4 or 5 stack and take 500-600 damage, and usually confirm a kill on a main tank or fully confirm a kill on a DPS or support. If there is too much pressure, I will sometimes place the nest back behind point here, just depending on which side the enemy team is walking, if they're walking that left side or that right side, just to give us a little more time to possibly retake this entire position and clear the enemy team. If there is way too much pressure, I will move my nest all the way back here just for our supports to play in while we wait for a teleport or a regroup by our team. But again, you're going to want to retake this position here every time you guys do win a team fight. Don't leave your nest and your setup back behind point, as these are not ideal positions. This next section of the map just really isn't ideal for Peni. There's a very aggressive hold you can start with right next to the enemy spawn, which is going to be right here with snaking webs down this way. Don't really recommend taking advantage of this position or even trying for it, because you will get pushed out very quickly, and that'll make us lose our next hold position on this map, which is actually going to be on the back side of this tunnel here, where we're able to set up our nest. And then I like to have 2 webs down this way, and then 1 web covering the rest of main. I'll put my mine stacks here, and then I'll put my mine stacks at the back of this web here. But again, you're going to have enemies trying to contest you from height. There will be someone taking an off angle to destroy your nest from this side. There just really aren't a lot of great options here for Peni in general. Once the enemy team does move the cart past this section, or even up into this section here, and you're able to recontest it, this is a decent spot to hold on to, as the enemy team walking back from spawn are likely going to be going this way to get to the cart instead of walking all the way down underneath, just because the objective has been pushed past that more difficult section. You're going to want to maintain a presence down here, but also you're going to want to maintain a presence down here, but also the enemies are often going to be just jumping directly to this height and off-angling and destroying your nest while you're trying to hold down main. It's good to either have 1 web set up here, specifically to re-up with mines to contest the DPS that are trying to take this off-angle, or tell your team and your DPS to contest this off-angle for you. This section of the map, again, there really aren't good hold positions for this last point. We're able to put our nest back behind this tree here, or maybe behind this pillar in the fog, But again, it's really not a good hold position for us, just because it is easy for the enemy team to take any kind of angle and shoot our nest, whether it be height over here, or they're able to also see it down from below here and shoot it for free. With this last section, there are going to be a few strong positions, but remember the enemy team spawn is right here, so we're not able to set up over here or any of these spots without the enemy team able to take some decent off angles on us. What I like to do is go ahead and give up space and opt for this position in general, where I'm able to snake 2 webs down here and then a 3rd right there. I'll usually re-up the mines on this section here and this front section here. The only area that we have to worry about is enemy team taking off angles here, but again, they're not able to get access to the nest without being quite aggressive and being within LOS of our entire team. Our main tank's going to be playing this way, our supports are going to be playing back in the webs here, and then our DPS are just going to want to be contesting this off angle. And for the last decent hold position on the map, which again isn't a great one, but it's all that we have left, is going to be nest down here, and then snaking our webs once again all the way down main. But the enemy team is able to walk pretty freely up to this location and just take an off angle on it for free. It's just all that we have left. Anytime that you can in this section, you're going to want to retake this fog here and then snake your webs down main every time after you do win a fight, just because being backed up into that last position is less than ideal. It's going to be a Hall of Djalia. With this, we're going to want the main nest a little further back here, just again to give our supports a really great area to back up into and play in.
The battle starts in 5.
I'll often use 3 webs just like this across down main. One other thing you can do here is move your main nest just a little bit closer and still maintain the ability to not be shot down by the enemy team while walking down main without having to get pretty aggressive and take quite a bit of space. What you can do is actually just have 2 webs over here snaking down main for full coverage, and then keeping 1 web over here just to have full coverage of the downward off angles.
This is gonna hurt.
And then re-upping mines on this web over here when need be if the enemy team is trying to take that off angle. You'll often try to see them contest height as well, but we do have a little bit of web coverage over here, so they're not able to shoot and take this nest without taking some damage. What I also like to do is I'll ask my team to break the bridge behind me so they can't walk across it and use it as an off angle either, without taking the risk of falling or getting hooked in or pulled down by an invis or anything by the enemy team and then dropping and kind of being free eats on this back section here. Once they have taken the first point, there's not really a whole lot of good sections until we get to the top of the stairs, but this one is one you can use for just a little bit of time. Again, full nest in there, and then snaking webs all the way down and across main, re-upping mines where you expect the enemy team to walk depending on their composition. But I do give up this section pretty quickly just because it's not a good hold position. They're able to walk in pretty far and again off angle and take your nest here, or they're able to walk inside this location and just get around it entirely by taking height and kind of pushing your team back automatically without you being able to take advantage of your setup. So the next best position on this entire map set is actually going to be right here, placing nests down this way, putting 2 webs down here, and then what I like to do is put 1 web on this right side, because it's not very often that the enemy team is able to walk through this entire section here. They'll often go for the top left, and again, try to take an off angle to get to your nest, usually unsuccessfully. Once again, just like the bridge before, I will like to break height here, just because a lot of the time you'll see the enemies going up this way, trying to walk across and then breaking your setup from behind.
Whoever they are,
But in general, there's not a lot of great hold positions in this second section of the map. Really just here is going to be our most prominent and dominant one. Once the enemy team's gotten to that next checkpoint, this is going to be our next hold position. Once again, snaking webs all the way down main here. This is a fairly strong one, but it is close to the enemy spawn, and ours is a little bit further back just because they did get that checkpoint that's right here. But It is an easy one to hold, and you shouldn't have a whole lot of issues with people taking off angles over here. You, your main tank, your supports, and both DPS are usually able to see what's going on all along this section without the enemy team being able to get to your nest a whole lot. But if the carts move past this section here, your next hold position is going to be right here. You do have good coverage in general. Once again, having a DPS contest this height up here, just so the enemy team can't walk for free and shoot you in the back and shoot your setup for free. And then our last decent hold position on this map set is going to be with our nest back here. This is, again, less than ideal, just because it is the last part of the map, to where if we do die here, the enemy team usually wins the round and pushes fully without being contested by our team. Arakko is going to be one of the strongest map sets for Peni in general, as there's fantastic hold positions on all three sections. Whenever it comes to our first setup, we're going to want to put our main nest right here in this corner, and then again, webs down across main. This is one that you can hold out at for a little bit, but once the enemy catches on, they are going to take an off angle and shoot your nest from over here pretty quickly. You'll also notice your team is going to be playing height here most of the time, so you're going to be pretty exposed here down main. You're not going to want to get caught out here. Just really give the space as slowly as possible and make the enemy team work for it. After this section, there's two options on this back corner, depending on team comps that you're going against. We can put our nest over here, and then again, snake webs down all the way across main, just to get full coverage. One thing you're going to want to keep in mind here is not to get caught out in this section while the enemy team walks down main and separates from your team, because you will be able to get punished pretty quickly here. Again, this space really isn't worth dying for, as we want to take advantage of the last section for this part of the map set. But again, putting your nest down this way and then snaking our webs all the way down main just to get full coverage once again. And again, we do have a little bit of a hold position here. It's just not a super safe one for us or our team to play around. Just because of this hole right here, if an enemy drags any of your teammates down this hole, this position is usually lost pretty quickly, and just unsafe for you and your entire team to play in. But this right here is going to be the strongest hold on this entire map set for Arakko. It's going to be your nest back here behind this portal, and then 3 nests covering all the way down onto main here. The only thing you'll have to worry about is enemies coming up top and off-angling here, trying to contest this height to destroy your nest from this way. Every now and then you'll also see someone try to contest height up here. They're really not able to do much. It's very easy to push them out from this spot, but you're going to want to be re-upping the webs on the left and right side, as well as the back of this main spot here, as their main tank will end up trying to push through all the way and destroy your nest. But this is the position you're going to want to die for. This is just once again the strongest position for this entire map set. I get a ton of first holds here, as there's not a lot of options for the enemy team to off-angle on. Once the enemy has taken that checkpoint, there's not a lot of good sections to hold here. I will see a lot of people set up on this section and try to get dug in, but once again, it's far too close to the enemy's new spawn, and there's too many off angles for us to deal with, and they're usually able to shoot nests for free, and our team's not able to contest the off angles. So what I do instead is I actually back up pretty quickly, give a lot of space, which isn't ideal, but it's what we're stuck with on this map set, and I will contest height with my nest back here, while my team contests main, as height is a really big advantage on this section of the map for both teams to have possession of. So I will make it to where the enemy team cannot walk and take this height, while my main tank and the rest of my team plays down main and contests it over here. I have seen a lot of other players set up down below, but once again, because you're giving enemy team that height advantage, they're really able to walk around you for free and poke into everyone over here. But contesting that height is just a way to slow the enemy team down during this section of the map. I don't expect you to get full holds here whatsoever. Then we'll go to the strongest section on this part of the map, which is going to be up here at height. We're able to contest this off angle here with our nest, where the enemy's not really able to walk through. The only open side that we leave is this left side here, But again, we will have a DPS watching this off angle and contesting this space. But we're just going to want to put all 3 of our webs down across main for us to play in, and for the rest of our team is able to play in this back section here, especially our supports. Once again, just like the other setups, mine placements on this right and left side are going to be more ideal, as that's where the enemy team is going to try and walk. Main tanks are going to try to walk on this off angle and destroy nests this way, and you'll see DPS players trying to pepper your supports or get hooks or CC your team out from this angle over here. At the start of this next section, there is an okay hold position right here, but this is, again, dependent on if your team is able to get a spawn hold going, which is just not typical and not realistic for this section, as their spawn is right there. So they are able to break through this setup pretty quickly. You are not going to want to die over this space, just again because the next hold position is so much stronger. And if we miss the opportunity to take advantage of this hold position down here, it really is a loss for this section of the map. So I don't recommend holding up there or losing your life to hold this section, as you won't be able to take advantage of this section next, which is just going to be your main nest over here, and then snaking webs down main once again. Your DPS are going to want to contest height while you contest the cart with your main tank down here. Usually supports are able to either play in this room with you, or will be playing even further back in here, just to be able to stay out of LOS of the enemy team, but still give you and your other main tank plenty of heals. If the cart has pushed underneath this section and the enemies have pushed you out, again, a good setup is going to be back here, where our nest is heavily protected. We're just going to have to worry about enemies on height there, and then snaking our webs down main, just like normal. Again, if they have taken too much space, another hold position is going to be right here. This is going to be our last hold position for this map set that has really any strength to it without us just holding on to everything with our dear lives. Because if you do lose this position, the enemy team does get a full push on the map. For first point Yggdrasill, you're going to want to put your main nest back here. Make sure it's out of LOS of the enemy team. And you're going to have your 3 webs running across just like this. The main mine location that I use for this setup is going to be right here at the edge of this web, but you'll also see me rotate quite often to the back edge as well as the front edge, depending on how much time the enemy team gives me to set up and re-up my mines. I'll also use a few mines over here, again at the front or the back of this web, but this path is taken a lot less frequently than this one is, so the main focus is usually re-upping this web right here and focusing on hitting stuns on the enemy team there. One setup I also see used here quite often is going to be by Ishigo, actually. What he likes to do is place his main nest back here, and then he likes to put 3 webs out this direction instead of covering the choke. With this, I do like it. I do see him get a lot of success with it, but the one thing it does allow is teams to walk a little more freely across main and then over to the right side flank and then possibly get back behind you. But again, I do see Ishigo get quite a bit of success with this setup. For our next location, this is one I see used heavily in lower elo. It's not something that I typically go for very often, but again, main nest back here behind this rock, out of LOS of the enemy team, and then all 3 webs snaking down main and just fully covering it here. Again, this isn't one that I use very often, but I do see it get pretty heavy success in low elo. The one that I go for instead is actually getting dug in right here, so having main nest there, and then once again, all 3 webs snaking all the way down main. Main thing is, we do want this full coverage here. Main mine placement is going to be back along this web here, because this is where they're going to try to walk to swing out to get a big angle on your nest. And then the other placements is actually going to be right here, because they'll try to use this hard cover to get close and push your team back very quickly. Falling back from this point is going to be a less than ideal setup over here. Again, you're going to want to retake the space on the previous setup as quickly as possible, so if you do get pushed back this way, and you do end up winning a fight, I'm going to want to see you move your nest and your setup back up to the previous spot, as it is a stronger hold position. This is one you're going to want to reset up on as many times as you can. Again, retake this space whenever you do get the opportunity, just because everything further behind this is just much less than ideal. This is a much better setup, much better spot for us to hold on to. Then after this, the only last spot we have before this checkpoint is really right here. It's, again, not very good coverage. We're backed into a wall, we're backed into a choke. It's really just one fight, or, our setup broken down very quickly, and the enemy is going to go ahead and get the first checkpoint at this gate. But again, once you do win a fight here, you're going to want to retake that main space all the way up into the middle point that I showed you earlier. Once the enemy's gotten this gate here, there's going to be 2 more decent locations for us to be using, and that's going to be putting our nest right here. Once again, snaking webs all the way down main, just to make sure that we do get full coverage here, and that the enemy doesn't have decent LOS of our nest without really having to commit into this space here. And again, just in general here, re-upping anywhere on these webs is a good go-to. They're going to be forced to walk across some of them, whether it be the first ones or the last ones if they come down here. The enemy team will also try to come over here and break your nest from up top. This tree is breakable, so they are going to be getting an angle there. One thing that I often do is put an entire web up here and mine it as well, and then keep my webs across main going as well. So I can test the off angle to break my setup with a web up here, and I'll often take myself up here to contest this space. Then our next and last hold position on this map set is going to be our main nest right here, and then snaking our webs just across main like this here.
This is gonna hurt.
I'll typically re-up mines on this spot here because that is going to be the main spot that the enemy team is going to want to walk. But I'll often put another little stack here just in case they try to take the quick angle. The first point here on Spider Islands is going to be the best section of the map for this entire map set in general. There's so many hold positions on it. I really don't like to give it up whatsoever, because if I know that they make it through this first point, there's a really good chance that they're going to make it all the way to the end of the map, if not at the very least to the end of the third section where we get stronger hold points again. But this is going to be our first setup here. Just main nest by the tree, snaking all the way down main. This is typically where the cart will end up stalling. You'll see me re-upping mines again to the left and right side. And if we do get a full team wipe, you'll see me often re-upping mines at the very tip of this web here. Once this space is taken, or once you're under too much pressure, go ahead and feel free to fall back to this spot right here. This allows you to cover this flank while also having good coverage down main. And once again, we're going to want to fully extend our webs down to get full coverage across main. And if you do win a fight, go ahead and feel free to retake this space in this setup. And that really goes for everything in this entire map set. Once you do regain space, go ahead and feel free to take advantage of the next forward setup, and then just give that space whenever you're under too much pressure. Once we're pushed out from this spot, you're actually going to want to break this out here and set your nest up inside of this room. You see, we get some coverage down main, we get a little bit of coverage down the back spot, and again, just snaking our webs all the way across to have full coverage. This is typically how I'll snake my webs out, just because the enemy team doesn't often walk this left side here. Just re-up mines where you see fit, whether it be at the front or back of webs or in certain chokes. After this spot, that's really the last decent spot within this first section of the map. There's also one where you can put the nest behind this little truck here. And again, snake webs down onto main.
Mine's in place.
But whenever you get a chance, you are going to want to retake this room. You're going to want to retake this spot here. And then, if you can, retake all the way at this forward building here. For the second section of the map here, There's a lot less decent setups. That's why I like to hold on to that first section with my life best I can. But our next setup is going to be behind this big rock here with 2 webs down onto main. And then I like to put 1 web down on this backside just because it is very easy for the enemy team to come in here on this off angle and shoot at our nest. And the reason that this one's just not ideal is because they can also take this height here. It's just very easy for them to destroy the nest. So you're not going to want to die for this space. But the next setup position is a little bit stronger. Still just not a fantastic one. That's going to be with our nest behind the wall here. And then snaking webs down onto main. One setup that I do use and see set up by other people every now and then is actually breaking out this wall here and placing the nest inside. It's a decent setup, but again, the enemy team's really able to walk through this left side for free and get around your setup and off angle and shoot the nest entirely. One other one's going to be back behind this point here. It just doesn't get a whole lot of coverage throughout it, so you do get to put the nest back there. But we're so close to the edge, we can get pulled off by an Angela or a Spidey or kicked off by an Emma once they take this space. It's just not an ideal hold spot. And the last setup in this section is actually going to be placing Nest back here and then snaking all our webs down onto main once again just to get that full coverage. This is probably the strongest hold position in this section of the map set. Again, the second section's just really weak for us in general. It's not super good to hold. There's too many off angles and too much open space.
We will preserve the webmaster weaver. I promise.
For our next position, we can actually hold a little bit aggressively down main here, placing our nest back behind this wall. And once again, all of our webs down across main here, just to get some good connections and good coverage. Again, this setup isn't super strong. It's one you're going to want to fall back from pretty quickly once there's too much pressure, as the enemy is able to come through this right side and just mob in here and get around your nest entirely and shoot it for free. 2 spots very close together are actually going to be right here, and snaking our webs all the way down main once again. Again, not a fantastic position. They are able to walk around our setup in general and take a pretty easy off angle and shoot the nest for free. A lot of the time I'll go ahead and not even try this spot, just hold behind this position instead, and then have my webs all going down this main choke here, as there's way less off angles for them to take. I'll usually give up this position right away and just default back to this position here, because my DPS are able to hold this angle up here, fall back into the nest for healing, and then we're able to cover main entirely. The only issue with this spot here is they are able to take this height here and off angle and shoot the nest for free. Once again, the first section of this map is just so much stronger. That's where you're going to want to be looking to fully hold. And then our final setup position is just simply going to be back behind this wall. This is our last position we're able to hold on to. Once again, just snaking webs straight down main here. Obviously, we need to fight for our life, and we are going to die over this position. So if we lose it, the enemy is just going to win the round entirely. Okay, and now we'll go over Midtown. For our first setup, I'm sure you've seen it before. It's a very common hold position. I like to set up my nest right on piano, and then just snake webs fully down main. This isn't a position that I like to hold on to very hard, as our next position is going to be much stronger and is usually a game-winning position for this map set. But once your team's under too much pressure, you can go ahead and call for everyone to regroup around ambulance. The ambulance position is going to be the strongest one for the entire map set of Midtown. You're going to see our supports are able to play behind hard cover really easily without the enemies able to take too much off angles to get them, except for this right side. But it's typically easy to keep a DPS over here to be contesting this off angle while you hold down main. Again, mine placements are going to want to be at the edge of nest, just on this very left side and this very right side. This is a position you're going to want to die for and try to hold on to with your life. Again, as I said before, it is the strongest hold position in this map set. If you do get pushed back from here, the next best position is going to be behind the bus here.
You know what to do, spiders?
Where you set up the nest here, and then once again, getting full coverage down main with all 3 of your webs. Once you do win a fight at this position, it's going to be really good for you to retake ambulance as much as possible, because like I said, it is a very strong hold position and the strongest one in the map set. If the enemy pushes cart even further and you need time for your team to regroup, this isn't a terrible position to take advantage of for the time being. Just putting nests back behind in this tunnel here, and then snaking down webs onto main for you to be able to contest cart. But again, you're going to want to retake that ambulance position as much as possible here. After this, there is an option for a fairly close hold, which is going to be right here, snaking 2 webs down onto main, and then 1 extra one contesting this off angle. But you'll be able to see that the enemies are able to walk in pretty quickly and pretty easily to be able to off angle here and shoot this nest. So it's not a position that I like to set up very often on, as it is fairly close to the enemy's new spawn. What I'll usually end up doing is holding back here instead. And once again, snaking all 3 webs down across main. But even this isn't a strong hold position for us. It's one you typically do end up giving up or dying for, depending on where the card is. But if the card's made it to this position and the enemy team has just won a fight, I'll typically self-break my nest and move back to our next position, as it is another strong one for the map set, but not as strong as ambulance, but still a good one that I do get a few decent holds at. Once again, snaking our webs all the way down main, all 3 of them there, and placing mines at the edges, as the cart is typically going to go across this middle spot and enemies are not going to be walking here. If the fight does get hairy and you do play your life waiting for your team to regroup, one thing you can do is place the main nest behind this wall just for the time being, and then snaking your webs out to be able to contest cart and play around your life there. The second you do get a chance, you're going to want to retake this position here, as it is much stronger than, again, anything else in this section of the map. Once the enemy's taken that next checkpoint, this is an option for you to move to. It is extremely aggressive and very close to the enemy's spawn here, so really if you lose one fight, you've lost this position entirely. I wouldn't recommend dying for it, but it is a decent hold position if you are able to hold the enemy team at spawn. Once under a little bit of pressure, there's only a few more spots under this map set that are okay to use. They're not great. This section of the map here does rebuild and this entire area becomes open, but until then, you are able to set up here and contest almost all of this space. But you'll notice enemies taking a height here and trying to off angle and shoot your nest. They're not really able to walk through any of this area, but they are able to, again, walk through this hallway, go all the way around, and take an off angle and possibly get behind you. You're just going to want your DPS managing these off angles while you hold down main. There's also an option for you to hold this side here and able to contest this space a little bit better. But again, just continuing the same webs, if not very similar, down main here. And re-upping mines at each edge of the web, whether it be at the front or all the way on the back side. Whatever would surprise the enemy and be able to do some good burst damage while they're trying to walk to contest your nest. After that's going to be the last 2 hold positions for this map set, and once again, they are not great. Everything is stronger at ambulance here, but being able to place main nest back here, and once again, webs down main. You're just trying to buy time at this point and slow the enemy down by making them work for every single inch of space here. And then again, once they push past this point or push the cart anywhere into this setup where they're able to really hop on it and just shoot this nest for free, you're going to back up to our last hold position, which is going to be this right side here. And again, snaking webs down onto main the best that we can. Next, we'll go over Hell's Haven, which the Hell's Haven map sets are probably the toughest ones in general when it comes to Peni and the Domination map sets. But on rollout, I do like to put my nest there on the left side where it has decent coverage, and then I will snake my webs down onto main. Or I will take one of my webs on early rollout, and whenever I'm rolling out from the opposite side, you'll actually see me put 3 mines there, because a lot of the time the enemy team will end up backing into that early on, whether it be a DPS or support, while their main tank walks down main. Once you have taken this position and have gotten a decent hold in, and the enemy team is regrouping from spawn, I do like to put my main nest down here. and then all 3 webs down main. Sometimes I will even take some and take this full off angle over here while keeping 1 web on the left side. It really just depends on what the enemy team is trying to do, but they will often take this off angle over here and shoot the nest for free, or they will go all the way along this right section and take this off angle here. Again, Hell's Haven just really doesn't have a lot of decent setups for Peni, but once you're under too much pressure, you can move the nest back a little bit further this way, but again, we're going to have the same issue with off angles as we previously did. Setting up on the main section of the map just isn't great because anytime the map does move, it will break our nest and our setup. It does put it on cooldown immediately, but if it's taken any damage already, it'll now be put down on a timer cooldown because it did take damage before the map moved and broke. Those are going to be the 2 decent positions for Hell's Haven. Again, the rest of the map, there's just not a lot of good areas for us to set up on here. And taking any hold positions up on this section is just going to be way too close to the enemy spawn door right over there, and they're able to take height and too many off angles to shoot and push through our setup before we even get them to contest the point. So if we die over here, we've really given up the point for free before making them have to walk through any of the more difficult sections of the map. For Frozen Airfield, it is a tough first point take for us, but once we do get this take, it is a fairly easy part of the map to hold. So what I like to do is put my nest right here on the left side and then snake webs all the way down to main while contesting the enemy as they try to walk the point here. Once the first fight is won, I will set up on the enemy's side of the map with my main nest here, and then I will snake all 3 webs all the way across main to where the enemy can just walk and take the point for free without contesting either my nest or the webs in general. Sometimes people will take an off angle through this section of the map over here and get behind you to destroy the nest, but it's pretty rare. A lot of the time they will just be trying to walk and force through main with their team. Once the enemy team does start to walk through or does have support ults or any resources that they can use to walk through here in general, I will move my nest back to either behind this point or that original left side there, or I will put it all the way back here just to where I can keep a couple toes on point to contest the objective and play for my life, or until my team has time to regroup and make it back out onto point with me so I can retake that space. Just a reminder that this section of the map does move once it gets to 50%, so even if you do have a setup over here, you are going to lose it entirely. And a lot of the time, this will happen to me whenever the enemy team is trying to walk and take this space, so they will be positioned to the right side and be within LOS of my nest now. But once you do win that fight, go ahead and snake your webs down to main. This is actually easier to hold than the previous section because they do have less space to walk here. But this is the point where they'll stop trying to walk main because this is a very tight and difficult choke for them, and they'll be more likely to take this off angle and shoot your nest before attempting to walk main over and over and over again. Sometimes they will walk through this back section here and walk around your setup entirely, but again, it's pretty rare that I see an organized team do that, even in lower to high Celestial. Frozen Airfield Healer is actually the toughest point to take with Peni at first. Sometimes I'll leave my main nest back here with my allies, depending on what the enemy team is running. If they're on a BP or a Daredevil or an Iron Fist or any kind of dive, I will leave it back here for them. But these walls in this section make it extremely difficult for us to set up anywhere on this map. So what I actually do is I take height right here, and sometimes I'll take my main nest with me and put a web down here, but the main thing that I'm looking to do is actually throw a web down in this section here and throw some mines that could get a support pick on the enemy team, as their supports are going to look to play back in this choke while the rest of their team plays down main. Once I see an opportunity to go in and be aggressive towards the enemy supports, I will take it here and sometimes get an opposite side set up while the enemy team plays in the main section of the map, because again, these walls are really bad for us. They break our nest for free. We're not able to set them on this point here without a wall just coming through and blowing them up. And then also, depending on the enemy team's team comp, if there is a Spidey or an Angela, they are going to be looking to put us down this hole and put us off the map. So it's much safer to be playing in these sections in general. Once you do take the first point, what I like to do is have my nest set up on this left side here, have 2 webs going down main this way, and then another on this section here, to where you'll see the enemy team will try walking this side and taking an off angle, but you're able to keep eyes on them pretty easily here all the way across the board. The only off angles that you have to worry about is someone playing up here on this top left side, which I'll tell my DPS to look over and contest while I hold down main, and then these top right sections here. If the enemy team has pressured you out of this point, you can move your nest on the back side of this point, but again, it's just not ideal. You'll see the enemy team's able to take a whole lot of off angles here in general. And then for your last option, to just be able to contest a little bit, you can put your nest back in the little hidey hole here and snake your webs down onto main. But a lot of the time, this is the scenario you're in, the team has already lost point. Domination is a lot tougher for Peni in general, especially for the first point takes. On this section, the best thing we can do is set our nest behind the main pillar here, and I'll snake 1 or 2 webs down this direction, and then maybe another down this direction, just so the enemy can't fully get a good angle on our nest right out the gate. Hopefully we can maintain pressure and get some confirmed kills. But with the Wakanda map set in general, it's really good for us whenever the map changes, as we get an advantage to a lot more hold positions than just behind this pillar here. Once you do take the point here, you're going to want to actually set up your nest right here, and then put all 3 of your webs, once again, down onto main. The enemy team's going to try to walk here quite often. They'll also try to walk and take this height here. This is going to put them in a really bad position to be shot by you and your entire team while they're up here trying to destroy this nest before walking. Once this middle section here has taken enough damage, you'll actually see some decent map changes that we can take advantage of whenever there's too much pressure on main. We can move our nest here. The enemy team is going to be able to take off angles from this side though. And then whenever we're pressured out even more, just to be able to contest and still touch, we're able to put our nest back here and then snake webs this way, just so we can try to contest the objective. Once again, on a lot of domination map sets, we do not have good starting positions. What I'll actually do is I'll take the back side of the point here, so my nest is protected. A lot of the time, enemies will try to come off angle from this left side, being pretty exposed from their team in general, but I'll end up putting some webs down onto main here. And then on your rollout, you can also shoot a web over to this section here and throw some mines into it. This does often get me a support pick, just because when the enemy team is trying to roll out and contest the objective, they'll end up walking with their main tanks here, and their supports will try to walk and back up into this corner and be kind of completely oblivious to the mines just because of how much is going on in front of them. Once we do take this section here, I will often like to hold close. If the enemy team continues to try to walk main, I'll put my main nest here, and then I will put all 3 webs all the way down this section. The mine locations will typically be right at the tip here, just because someone will be trying to walk around and take an off angle here. And then it's going to be the back point of main right here, just because when an enemy support, whether it be a Luna or Cloak, goes to ult, what they will do is they will walk straight down main with it, or the Cloak will ult, and one of their first dashes will end up here, often ending up with them dying through their ult. And the same goes for Luna ult. They will be too aggressive and overconfident with it, and they won't understand I have 4 or 5 or 600 damage right there waiting to blow them up while they attempt to walk in. If the enemy team does pressure you out from here, I will give up that space pretty quickly and go and put my nest on the back side of the point here, snaking webs down this way, and then playing on the objective myself. And then again, if they push even harder, just to be able to contest the objective, I will put my main nest back on this side, and then a web or 2 on either area, just so my main tank and myself can play in the speed boost and self-heals here while maintaining control over the objective, even though the enemy team is playing extremely aggressively and likely to take us from it at this point. For Warrior Falls, I do like to do a very quick rollout because I want to get set up on point before the enemy team does here. We're often able to take advantage of that just because of our quick movement. You're also going to want to communicate with your team to walk directly onto point first, but I'll put my main nest there, I'll put a web on this side, and then I will be putting 2 up this way and just trying to contest the enemy out of this space entirely. For this map set, getting your team to break the map is going to be a huge advantage. I will usually talk to my team while I am still in spawn and go, hey, once we take the point, please, if you do have the time, break the map, as it makes it one choke, which makes it way easier for you to hold as Peni. Once the map's fully broken, you'll actually end up watching this full section close off here, which the enemy will be able to take height on the left and right side, but that's really the only areas you have to worry about. Other than that, I'll end up putting a couple webs here and here, and this is going to be the most locked in position for this map set. 3 upping mines on this middle section here. Celestial Husk actually is my least favorite domination map set, but my highest win rate by a landslide. I typically keep a 70% win rate on this map set, which is wildly high for Peni. But we're going to want a fast rollout here, and we want to get our main nest set up under this choke here because we don't want the enemy team to drop. But right away, I want you to put 4 mines out here because when the enemy team does drop, whenever the supports drop, you'll see they will back up to this section and usually die immediately to your mines, giving you the first point. This is the setup that we're going to want to use almost the entire time. Our team is going to want to aggressively take this height and then fall back to point whenever they can, just to buy us more percentage on the board in general. If the enemy team does drop and there's too much pressure, you can play behind this pillar here, but I do highly recommend trying to keep this space as much as possible, or what's usually better than the pillar, if they are still going for height and they are dropping on you, you can always put your nest back behind this point and do a reversal setup on the enemy team. So while you are shooting them in the back here, your team is playing around that choke there, playing behind this pillar, playing behind these boxes, and you're really able to pinch them without them having, say, space to back up into. And then again, just like the Hell's Haven map sets, if the enemy team does start pushing you off a point, you can put your nest back here and hold this way. But again, this is just playing time, hoping that your team can get a regroup in or anything like that. There's another area that you can use your setup on, and that's putting your main nest here and then kind of snaking your webs all the way down main. But again, they're just going to have so many off angles. They can even shoot your nest all the way from here or go around that other side. Or they can also take height up here and really just get easy access to it. So again, the main area that you're going to want to keep your nest in is here, and fight for your life for this space as much as possible. This section will actually be the most difficult of the 3 to hold on to, just because it has the most open space, which you'll see is a common theme in setups, is the more open space, the less ideal it is for us in general. But starting out with our main nest back here, having a couple webs out this direction, and then maybe one out this direction, and contesting this until you're able to take the first point. Once you do take first point though, having your nest over here, having your nest over here isn't a bad option. Once you do take first point, having your nest over here is not a bad option at all, with snaking your webs all the way down through main. The only 2 issues that you're going to have with that is enemy team is able to play height here a little bit and shoot your nest for free, as well as this opposite side. You're going to want to have your DPS and supports keeping eyes on because the enemy team is going to try to push through. Once again, off angle your nest here in general. I will often give up this space quite easily just to fall to the back section of this point over and over and over again until I'm able to confirm a kill or play more aggressively in the team fight and then retake that section up there. But that's really going to be the only 2 spots for this map set in general. Celestial Codex is probably going to be the middle ground between the 2 other maps on this, to where it's not the easiest, not the most difficult. But again, we're going to want a fast rollout here, getting a web down main, getting it mined up as fast as possible, and then I'll usually start off with my main nest over here, and then have webs down in this section over here. The enemy team will most likely look to push on this side over here, but my main tank and DPS can usually contest that off angle pretty easily. Once you do have that captured, you can move up to this pillar here and have a web or 2 going down this direction to contest that off angle, and then another one here. But with this setup, I will be, again, way more flexible and way more likely to walk all the way back to point with it, because the enemy team's able to take height over on this side and on the left side there, and shoot the nest for free pretty quickly. If the enemy team is walking in trying to shoot my nest, I will also go ahead and place it just back behind here as a last resort, while keeping mines up on this section there, just because it's going to be a very common spot for the enemies to enjoy walking, to try to take point from us and pressure us out of it. Again, if you are taking too much pressure, you can move your nest back to either this left and right side, just to give your support some spots to play in, and maybe you keep a toe on point just to buy percentage if you're either, about to for sure lose the point, or you're waiting for your team to regroup behind you. For the Krakoa map set, again, like all dominations, we're going to want to focus on fast rollouts here, cycling between putting our nests down and using our web zip to take space and put webs. But we're going to want to put our main nest here while getting set up to point. There's a couple of options. You can snake all of your webs down onto main on these stairs, or you can put one over here and then have two going out this direction to contest this off angle just a little bit more, so enemy team has a little bit less access to your nest. But again, most of the time they will walk around this entirely and shoot your nest for free, but they'll be within LOS of your entire team. Some other Peni players do like to just camp point here entirely and stay within this setup, or they'll stay here, and just in case enemy team takes the portal over here once it does open up, they will throw 4 mines in, so the first person that TPs, if they're a DPS or support, does get blown up immediately. The way that I like to play around this map set in general is actually holding a little bit closer to this section here.
You know what to do, spiders?
And I will put my main nest here, and then again, 3 webs just all the way down the main choke, as well as mining either the front or the very far back side, depending on how hard the enemy is pushing. But once the enemy team has kind of pushed me out through this section, I will web zig back to the point and reset up here, just so I can contest space for a second time with my setup and take advantage of my nest and mines under webs.
Time for some fireworks.
There's also another position you can kind of hold in here, depending on how the enemy team is playing. You can end up putting your nest here, having 2 webs down this way, and then another one on the top section here. But the enemy team does have height advantage and is able to get LOS on your nest pretty easily by jumping over this way and just contesting height from above. So I typically stick to this setup here and the one all the way back on point, but that is another option for you if you would like to use it. For the Grove, again, we're going to want to be focused on a fast rollout here, but there's not a good aggressive section for us to get set up on, so what I like to do is put my nest on this left side here to be blocked by this tree, and then I'll put 3 webs all the way down onto point for myself and my main tank to play in, and also leave fat mine stacks for the enemy team's main tank to end up blowing up on. Once we do take this section, there is a couple setups up here that we're able to take advantage of. One common one used is back here, just with 3 webs to cover all the way down the main choke. This is a decent one I see quite regularly. It gets a lot of success in lower elo because the enemy team doesn't do anything except try to walk through this section over and over again. One other setup I see used often is with the nest on the left side here, 1 web down main, and then a few webs just covering this top section here, so the enemy team really can't take an off angle from height to shoot the nest for free, and they also cannot walk down main and get an off angle on your nest here either. The only area that you have to worry about with that is the enemy team walking on this top right section. With this area though, I'm typically pretty flexible, and you'll see me fall back to the back of my own point quite regularly to put my nest back here for my supports to play in until we're able to take back this space and set up at the front of the point. For Carousel, it's going to be a little more difficult to get set up early here, but it's important that you do try. I'll typically put my nest here on the start of the rollout and then put my webs and mine stacks on the stairs here. What you're often going to see is enemies going to take height in this direction to off angle and shoot your nest and then just drop directly onto point once they have it handled, or they'll take this off angle up here and they'll shoot your nest from the backside and try to collapse in on your team while you're on point. Once you do have the point captured, you can move your nest back to this spot here, just again to have coverage all the way on point and down the main choke here, but you're still going to have to contest this height up here as well as this height because the enemy team is going to look for those off angles, and you're going to want to watch back behind you as the enemy team is going to be taking the teleporters. They're going to be taking height here. You're just going to you're just going to want to be really flexible with your setup in general and keep eyes on where the enemy team is where they're trying to walk. If they continue to walk down main and you are winning fights, you can set your nest up behind here and then have your webs go all the way down this way to where the only off angle the enemy team is able to take is actually wide over here to shoot your nest, or they're going to walk to the left and take this space in general. But if they are trying to walk main here repeatedly, you are able to hold this position for quite a while.
You've captured more than half.
And then if you're under a ton of pressure down main and your team is down, you can also move your nest back along this point and snake webs up this way just for you to be able to keep a toe on point and buy yourself a couple more percentage to where maybe you get to 99 and all you need to do is a TP back and win one fight, depending on where support ult economy is at. There's also a section I've seen people take in here, which just isn't one that I like to use very regularly, but you can put your main nest in here to contest height and then snake your webs all the way down main. But the enemy team's typically able to walk all the way around the edges of point or through the teleporter up here. So I just don't get a lot of use out of this setup, but it is an option for you to use.